Today in Syria, refugees are leaving by the thousands each day to seek sanction in safer countries. So many, in fact, the world has labeled it a crisis. You may have seen photos in the news recently like this, or this. All of the people in these photos are experiencing the life of a refugee firsthand. To understand their crisis, we must go back to the spring of 2011, to the start of the Syrian civil war. The conflict in Syria is very convoluted, with territories controlled by the different forces within Syria. In the western part of Syria, the government holds most of the land, shown in red. They share a border with their opposition, the Syrian rebels, in the southeast and northwest. Northern Syria is controlled for the most part by Syrian democratic forces, who border all of central Syria, held by the Islamic State of Iraq. The main conflict in the civil war was between armed pro-democratic rebellions and the Syrian government, or Bashar al-Assad, or the Syrian president's regime forces. To put it in simpler terms, it was a battle between the majority of people in Syria who wanted a government of democracy and the government who wanted to remain in power. The war started off with semi-peaceful protests by the government's opposition. This escalated into gun warfare, which escalated into bomb warfare, which turned into chemical warfare. Essentially, it just messed everything up in Syria. To explain what happens next, a graph is depicted. As you can see, from 2013 to 2015, refugees of the Syrian war stayed at a steady and constant rate. In 2015, however, you can see an exponential increase in refugees. This is caused by one man and one man only, Vladimir Putin. Putin, the president of Russia, decided to involve Russia in the Syrian civil war in 2015, which caused an escalation in conflict between the government and its opposition, who were being supported by none other than the American government itself. Both countries have spent upwards of $400 million on the war efforts, but stand to gain nearly double the profit through war revenue. That's right, us as first world countries are prolonging a war that has induced over 4.5 million refugees for monetary gain. It's almost as if we were at war with Russia, only our soldiers' lives were not the ones being risked, and our civilians were not the ones in danger. The United States has publicly rebutted what was previously stated with the fact that we have also spent a large sum of money on the aid of refugees, and taken in a modicum of Syrians into America. The amount of resources used in protecting immigrants is only for token value, and I'll explain why. Compare the United States, a country with 318 million people and a semi-steady economy, and Tunisia, a country with a population of 10 million and a shaky economy. Both have taken in the same amount of documented refugees into their respective countries, 4,000. This crisis is easily comparable to that of the end of the Holocaust. Both Jewish and Syrian refugees had just gone through the most traumatic events of their lives, and what did the world have to offer them? Nothing. Yes, Syrians are given the places to stay in their host countries, but in many places, like Turkey, the leader in intake of Syrian refugees at nearly 3 million, does not allow refugees permits to work, rendering them an economic burden to the country itself, bringing up poverty and economic disparity across the Eastern Hemisphere. The question is, how do we solve this problem? The world continues to struggle with the results of war, with no clear answer in sight.